I'll be right with you in a second. I'm just getting this started with YouTube. All right, good. What's going on, homie?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. What's good?
I'll get to talk for a little bit. I'll try to stay in here the whole time. I just don't know if I could talk the whole time. You know?
Yeah. I kind of hope that I don't make this space into like a forever shit.
hmm
I'm not really trying to do all that shit. Let me see back here. All right, cool.
And is the topic? Is it? Do you mean kind of like how do I say this? That they're focusing on kind of cinematic games instead of other things like fun and creativity, things like that. Is that what you mean?
I do mean that. I mean that, but unfortunately, you can't really like fun is something that you know what I mean. You can make fun out of anything if you really wanted to. So,
hmm
um, and what you already know, I don't gotta really tell you about this. And in essence, though, let me get this shit popping. Hold on, and then I'll try to speed up the process. I just wanna tinfoil cap. All right, I just want to put this in the spaces, and we should be good to go. I'm gonna try not to make like a crazy ass long space for sure. I really
hmm
don't have to fucking like I want to do other things too. And today my schedule was thrown off because of my own stupidity.
Got it.
So
I think if it stays on topic, it will, but the crazy spaces come when it gets derailed. You know what I mean? When
yeah,
people start talking about other shit. So,
you gotta blame that on what's his name, stage block man. I'm like I'm not gonna explain myself more than once. I think I articulate my shit more, properly, so it makes sense. But so we better get this shit started here. So welcome to the Tinfoil Cap Show, and we have these two topics that I actually been pondering on for a while. I'm going to try to make this space as about as short as I can make it. Probably 30 minutes piece, ideally within an hour is what I'm looking, really truly looking for. Um, but there's some things that's been on my mind. The first thing is just how I keep saying this as a 38-year-old man. I remember story was never a big component to gaming, but some of these games that did not have a story, or at least the story was nowhere near the focal point, they tend to be like classics, absolute classics. Stories with little words tend to be absolute classics. I think it's because you couldn't really, you didn't have to. How can I put it? Like the less words, the better, because the more you talk, the more interpretation. I'm surprised. The more definitive your interpretation is, and then there's no room for discussion. You know what I mean? But I want to kind of explore the cinematic game and how it actually destroyed gaming. It didn't really destroy gameplay. It's just what was put in front and center, and I've always had an issue with that. I've always had an issue with that. That's always been my particular problem. And I wanted to kind of bring light to it because I'm just some dude that has an opinion like anybody else, which leads into my second topic here. With everyone having opinions, and people feel so passionate about those opinions, especially for the atheist and the agnostic. Why do you have such strong opinions when it's going to be over soon anyway? The fear of non-existence is something that, especially getting up in age, has been something that I've always been thinking about. I've always had this, even when I was like real young. I've always had that kind of wonder and almost fear. I would say, at least a concern. about what happens after you, at least on this earth, stop existing. So I want to kind of explain and ask how people feel about, and I mean like an honest conversation, because people could be like edge lords and be like, well, I don't care, I live for the moment, and if I die, I die, oh well. It's like, well, then why care about anything? Just, do what you got to do. So I know you care about life, and I know you care about your existence. So how do you feel about not existing eventually? I know that's a deep topic, but along with the tinfoil cap show, I usually have a non-topic, and that's what this is. So, without further ado, we want to talk about um, the first topic here. Now, before anybody speaks at all, I want to put out there: do not derail, please. Do not derail. The topic is the topic, and the topic that I want to talk about is cinematic gaming destroying gaming in general. With that being said, how do you feel, Hideous, about that very topic?
Honestly, man, this is an interesting topic because it's like I just can't picture cinematics killing gaming because that's what got us to be fully engaged with games in general. Like, I'm not just gonna sit here, and trying to make it seem like I want the next feature of my gaming experience just to be straight multiplayer, no story, this and that. Because yesterday I was just playing, well, I just finished it for Spoken. Good cinematics. However, there were some points that I wanted to skip because I just wanted to be in a rush to finally beat this game because I'm very stoked for the next Final Fantasy 16. But I just cannot picture cinematics killing game at all. I just can't. I think
All right.
that's another way of hyping us for the next sequel. If you get what I mean, like how they like when they do E3s or PlayStation Showcase and they show like these gameplays, but they're not actually showing the gameplay, just showing us what the next coming game is going to be. That's what makes gaming interesting, bro. So I don't know how cinematics can kill gaming, but they're smoking.
All right. I got a rebuttal for it, but I'll talk about it after DJ and Jerk. What about you, DJ? What do you have to say?
I don't think gaming is being destroyed. Well, cinematics is destroying gaming. I think it's enhancing it because gaming has came a long way from the 8 bits, 16-bit days, and we even had it back then. It was just the rolling credits and stuff like that that kind of set the tone for it. But as we got into the 3D era, it's allowed for us to tell better stories and to have gaming be taken serious as a medium. It's to the point where we wouldn't have the Last of Us show if we didn't have the Last of Us game with that narrative. So yeah, I'm out and about right now. I just wanted to come through and show love, punch in real fast.
Sure, DJ. All right. Well, thank you for your input. Uh, Jerk, what you got to say about cinematic gaming? I know you are uh, uh, a person who advocates for, kind of like the creative, smaller games. So it'd be interesting to hear
Yeah,
how you feel.
I believe it can enhance a game, but it shouldn't be the focal point of it, if that makes sense. So I believe if it's done right, it's a great thing. And one of the games I feel kind of does it right is, well, like Days Gone. I felt like it was a good mixture of cinematic and gameplay, but the number one thing has to be gameplay, and the cinematics just enhance. It can enhance the story and make it better. But there's some games. There's an unpopular opinion. I felt like, so take God. I didn't like God of War Ragnarok that much, but take God of War 3. The cinematics and how they kind of mix it into the action, I loved. But I felt like with God of War Ragnarok, it was the cinematics of that was kind of like a filler almost. It kind of just felt empty, if that makes any sense at all. So I believe if it's done right, it's great. But if not, it could just kind of hinder a game.
What's going on, Devil Shooter? Cinematic in games is a problem till it's not. That all there is to it. So, here's my rebuttal to everyone that have their, that really agrees with cinematic gaming. This is how you could tell the OG gamers from the new age gamers. You know what I'm saying? And specifically the PlayStation fanboys, right? Versus regular gamers or any other fanboys of the other consoles. The exclusives that the fanboys always advocate for and say that it's best in class, I don't see any of them niggas really playing the game. The only thing that they typically talk about is what's happening in the story. And then I beg the question is, if that's all you care about, then why don't you just watch the show then? Because I don't see anyone really advocating for the gameplay of The Last of Us or Uncharted or, even Days Gone or Horizon or any of these things. You look at people that play Tears of the Kingdom. Say what you will about the graphics and what it looks like, or that it looks very similar to the original game, but you see the biggest focal point for like Nintendo games in general it's gameplay. It's gameplay. That's the biggest focal point, and that rings true because what gets played out? A story that you already know the beginning, middle, and end of. That's why a lot of PlayStation games are coined as one and done. It's like the media and specifically the PlayStation fans has this thing, right, where they feel like the only value for a PlayStation exclusive, right, is the story. No one talks about the game or its intricacies. Like when you talk about God of War Ragnarok, you talk about how Odin was, and no one really talks about the gameplay or how violent it looks cinematically, but nothing about gameplay. No one wants to dig their claws into the game and try to really figure out the gameplay mechanics. It's like most PlayStation fans will play it on normal, go through the paces of the story, and then you're done. You can even look at Uncharted. You go through the paces of Uncharted, and you're done with it. And you close the book, and you may not play it until you feel nostalgia again. Oh, they made a remake. Let me go ahead and play that. I remember it was so good, so good, so good. But nobody really talks about anything else. And I've noticed with a lot of PlayStation fans, the games that the story is lopsided and a negative tilt, the PlayStation gamers don't like it. You had Killzone 2. Excellent gameplay. No one talked about it other than graphics. You know what I'm saying? You had Horizon. No one fucking talked about. They don't really care about the game unless its graphics and proves their point. I come from a time where gameplay reigned supreme. When you talk about Sonic 2 from all the way in the Genesis and sometimes on the PC, people talk about the pinball element or whatever the case is, and they like that portion, or the feeling of speed when you go in there, you run across the little loop. You know what I mean? You didn't need no story for Sonic. I mean, it was there, but it was in the background. The problem is that a lot of cinematic experience, the story takes a front. It's like it's front and center, and gameplay is way behind. And it's not to say that it's bad. It's just prioritized to the media for some reason. It's like you have to simplify the gameplay so people can really experience the story. And I don't think that's the way to go. I really don't. So I'm gonna take a look to see who wants to kind of contest that particular comment. I don't see anybody with their hand raised, so I guess I'll go to Hideous.
So I hear what you're saying, but you got to look at it this way. If gaming was, so let's just say, all right, back at your time, right? If they were to repeat that to this time of age right now, I don't think gaming would have been fun.
It would have been fun?
Would not have been fun.
You think that the story is what makes the game fun? You think that that's the quantifiable element is a story, a cutscene? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But you're not playing it.
I'm playing it. What are you talking about?
But you're not playing a cinematic.
But you gotta
how can you quantify a cinematic as being fun? What exactly would you how do you quantify that statement?
How?
You do know that Fortnite, right, which is one of the biggest games they're on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have any real cinematics at all.
All right.
And yet that game is always talked about.
The biggest game right now? because it's a multiplayer game. You can't compare it.
No, but you can have many different multiplayer games, and they could flop. You got Halo Infinite,
I said
right? That's
multi-plat.
considered that doesn't matter. That's considered a major flop. You just can't say slapping multiplayer on something
I
makes it.
said multi.
That's why people talk about it, because you look at Killzone 2, you look at Resistance back in the day with PS3. A lot of those multiplayer games, they all flopped. That's why you don't see them today.
No,
Just because they're multiplayer. No, there's
that
an
is true.
element of gameplay that's in Fortnite that is fun. Period. If it wasn't fun, just like Destiny, then nobody would play that shit. People do like the story in Destiny, and just like what Jerk shit said, if it's done right, then it can elevate. But the problem is, especially with Sony's games, it's too lopsided on the cinematic experience and light on the gameplay. It's light enough for you to just play that shit and go through the storyline and close the book after you're done.
So
And that's how people treat it.
You're talking about. Give me an example of a game that you're talking about.
In terms of what?
That use so much of cinematics, and it's a one.
Uncharted. Any Naughty Dog game, to be honest with you, I don't see anybody clamoring for the gameplay. I don't see anybody saying that the gameplay is revolutionary. I don't see anybody talking about that. I don't see anybody talking about that with the Uncharted games. You know why? Because they're really talking about Nadine, and they talk about Drake and how he's saying these quips and stuff like that, and it was cool how he jumped off the building or the bike rode under the fucking truck. That's what they say about it. That's it.
But isn't it interesting where you get to understand their background, where they came from, and how?
No one's saying that is not interesting. I'm saying, and cinematics change the game to make people feel more invested in it. But there's been a time where it's like 70% story and 30% gameplay. I feel like that's awful. You be playing the game. If you feel that strongly, then make a fucking series out of it or a movie.
And that's what
that's how I feel about it. No, you start up. Keep it in that medium if you like it. The story, keep it in that medium. You're playing a game. That means you're interacting with it. You watching the fucking game or the cutscenes of it. This is why Sony games struggle, because you like the cinematic experience because it's something that is flashing for everybody to see. It's not a big hit. Now look at Spider-Man. People played the Spider-Man game. Even with Spider-Man, people don't talk about the gameplay.
Well, let me say this real quick. I don't think some games are struggling if they're already selling over 10 million. Because hold on, let me finish. There's other games that Sony had as cinematic, and they're not even out there anymore because they're not guaranteed 10 million. That's why we don't see Killzone anymore from Guerrillas, because Horizon came and overthrown that shit, and then look at the success that they have right now. 8.4 million right now.
This is what I don't like getting in these conversations with people that are, and I apologize in advance, ill-informed. The companies do not want 8 million. They want 20 plus. That's what they want. They want that shit off the bat in the first year. That's what they want. That's not good enough for the amount of money that they put into the game. It's not good enough. They put a shit ton of money in the game. Almost $500 million they are putting into these games, only for people to pick that shit up for 15 hours and put it down and never to be seen again. That is a problem.
True. That is true what you're saying, because I saw how Ragnarok was worth almost 200 million to make that game.
Mm-hmm.
Ragnarok.
And then people don't understand that Ragnarok has a lot of complicated systems.
Yeah.
It is a really intricate game. Say what you will about the story, which I felt like when Jerk was here, I felt like, yeah, that's how I feel. I didn't really like Ragnarok, because I have to go through this fucking stories again and squeeze in through a fucking gap and crawl under this or walk very slowly about a story I already heard of. And it's structured that way because it's linear in that way. And I can't break out of that, and that's annoying to me. And I'm kind of, quite frankly, tired of PlayStation fanboys saying that their games are the best ever. And it's like you're watching, it's like PlayStation fanboys literally will mark a game as game of the year for a fucking cutscene versus the game itself. I can't say that about Nintendo fans. They like their shit. They play their shit. They're all about their shit. Some of their biggest games are not story based. You can't tell me that shit's it's elevating everything when you have fucking Animal Crossing, which is very light on the story, do 30 fucking million.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because they don't have to worry about characters. They can infuse their mind and character, personality onto the character, whatever it may be. You can imagine things on your own or infer, such as Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus was like 80% game and 20% story, but the story was extremely profound. That is an example of doing it right. The Last of Us Part 2 is an example of doing it right. You know, that's my point. I'm not saying to remove it, but what I am saying is that I do think they need to remove these cinematics and let the gameplay breathe. And I feel like PlayStation fans are just not interested in that right now. They're just not interested. They don't want that right now. You know what I mean? Because you can't make it's just weird to me. But go on. I'll shut up.
I like what you're saying, but also, don't you think that is not just only coming from Sony fans, also coming from fans that's just jealous to the fact that they're not able to receive those games?
No, I think it's retaliation. If you ask me, I think it's retaliation. Yo, can you hear me? Yo, can you hear me? Yo, can you hear me? Hello? Yo, can you hear me? Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think I got disconnected. So I was saying was,
I heard what you were saying. By the way, you were saying that do you think it's jealousy? No,
not jealousy. Not jealousy like in general. I'm talking about like jealousy from the rival. Can you hear me?
I don't understand what you mean.
Okay, so you're saying how these Sony fanboys clamor so much about the cinematics and how dope their games are, right? But don't you think they're only talking about their rival? Because we can't listen. We already came to an agreement. Nintendo is out of this console war BS shit. They are, like you just said. They don't even care about cinematic. They only care about the damn gameplay. So why their games sell over 20 million plus? Because they don't have that much of cinematic shit going on. It's 90% gameplay and maybe 30% cutscenes.
Okay. What's your point?
I'm asking you a question. Don't you think that that's an argument with the rivals that's complaining about they're not receiving these type of games that Sony have?
Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm going to need you to be very direct in what you're saying. What are you trying to say? All right. I need to know exactly what you're saying.
So rewind the last thing you said.
Give me an example. But basically.
Okay. I'll give you an example. Ragnarok, right? God of War, right? Fantastic game. Good storyline, right? Mm-hmm. Compared to a game like Pentiment.
Mm-hmm. What about it?
So due to your topic, cinematics killing gaming, don't you think that's coming out of a bot's mouth?
No, it's coming out of my damn mouth. That's me that's saying it. I don't like it. I'm saying that as a PlayStation fan, boy, actually. I don't like it. I don't think it's coming from a place of jealousy. I don't think that. But I do feel that the PlayStation fans has latched on to cinematics because no one else is really doing it like that. And then that's their identity. I do feel that. We had cinematic games back in the day. Sometimes they weren't profound. Something like Jack and Dexter, or Jack 2 or 3. Those had excellent cinematics that were like very Disney-esque or cartoon-esque. And it still had major gameplay, like 30% cutscenes and 70% gameplay. And the cutscenes were done very well, and they were able to articulate the personality of each character, and you were fine with that. I feel like once PlayStation start getting notoriety about, man, this is like a movie, everybody latched onto it the same way that Nintendo fans latched onto, people saying that the gameplay is the bee's knees of like Nintendo stuff. And then whether the game is good or not, they just say that it is good. They just lump everything into gameplay. Unfortunately, that was a positive for them and a negative for anybody that likes PlayStation, because cutscenes is not gameplay. I don't care how you refashion it. It's not gameplay. You can't remix, flip it, and reverse it. You can't play cinematics.
So let me ask you this. How do you want gaming to be?
I want it to be a mixture. There's many different ways that you can do cinematics, right? You can have some high-ass quality cinematics, right? I mean, like super high-quality cinematics, such as Metal Gear Solid, where their runtime is super fucking long. They get all their cinematics out of their system before you start playing the game. And then you play the game for just as long as you actually watch the cutscene. And then you're done with the game because they play another cutscene, and then you can sit back and watch it. That's one way of doing it, right? Because they will have like a good 10 minutes of a scene, 20 minutes of gameplay, 10 minutes or 15 minutes of another cutscene, 20 minutes of gameplay, and they just keep alternating back and forth, where you can get the high quality things. Or like Shadow of the Colossus, where they're animated like to the fucking industry, beyond industry standards. You know what I'm saying? They are profound. They are emotional. They are every fucking thing. People are still talking about Shadow of the Colossus to this day, about the story and its implications. To this day. And the Shadow of the Colossus story is literally 2 pages. That's another way you do it. Less is more. You can create that. Hold on, let me finish. You can create the story through the environments, like the Souls game. Fucking shit. You could do story like the Souls games, where most of it is basically what you see, and you can infer most of the things. And they'll have like cutscenes that are about maybe a minute long, and that's pretty much it. There's many different ways of doing it, but I will say, since this medium is an interactive medium, it needs to be mostly interactive. Something no less than 70% of interaction.
So you would still prefer a game that has a story, but you just want less cutscene?
Yes.
I can hear where you're going with that. I truly do. But as I'm reading the topic and I understand that's coming from you, I just think that's just coming from a whole third party fanboyish.
Meaning what? I need you to speak clearly.
Oh, I'm gonna speak clearly, and because it's gonna frustrate you. They lack in making games.
Who does? The third party?
Microsoft.
Okay. What does that have
they
to do
lack
with,
in
what does that have to do with Sony or cinematics?
Let me finish. They lack in making games. Like, it's like, and you said this podcast ago, that where nowadays people are just so on the media and just going by the media to get their final, what's it called? Final, not decision, but what they feel that is right. When we know hypothetically it's not right. So, like I said, Ragnarok, right? That's a prime example. But then you got Pentiment, right? Oh, Ragnarok just a DLC. Pentiment's Game of the Year. Right there sounds like fucking jealousy, my guy. You're jealous to the fact that your company cannot make story games like that.
See, but here, let me just stop you right here. You keep bringing it, and every time you come in here, I don't understand the obsession with the Twitter space constantly with this console wars. Well, can we just talk about gaming? I don't care about what Xbox is, what they're jealous of. I created this topic specifically because I am a gamer, and this is what my opinion is. They don't even factor into my conversations, because it doesn't. What if they think Pentiment is a fucking triple? If it's a great game of the year, then That's them. I can't tell them anything else. All I can say is that a lot of the times, because the minority is loud, they move gaming into a weird space where they champion the wrong things and they alter the trajectory of gaming because everybody wants cinematic games. I don't understand. I like what blows me away as a person that's a gamer, right? Is people. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
People will literally do this, which blows me away. They become so defensive when somebody like provides criticism, constructive criticism over their said favorite IP or whatever the case is. I said something as so matter of fact that I feel like Sony relies too much on cinematics and not enough on gameplay. Not to say that the gameplay is bad, but it's like gameplay takes a back seat. And the second that they do, the Sony fanboys kind of don't like those games. It's like Sony fanboys are built to accept cutscenes more than gameplay. If you don't have a compelling cutscene, your game is mid. It's weird to me. You know what I'm saying? And it's like a lot of times. Well, I'll say this, right?
You know what? You're right about that. You're right about that. Because I think you said how Jack and Daxter, that was like a great example of a game that you would play that had less cinematics. I think you said that, right?
Yes.
So there was this podcast that I was on, and then I was telling him that they should bring that back. And Sly Cooper. But he was like, oh no, they're not gonna bring that shit back. What do you mean they're not gonna bring that shit back? I'm pretty sure we had some hardcore Jack and Daxter fans and Sly Cooper fans.
We do.
Mainly because of the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because of the IP.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because of the story.
Yep.
But what you just said now, like how you got games like Horizon, Ghost of Tsushima, and how they're not playing it, how are you gonna expect to wait for these games when they taking time and it's gonna be like it's gonna cost more to make those games, but you don't want those iconic Jack and Daxter and Sly Cooper back.
There's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to this shit. Because on one side of the fence, they say that they want something new. They tired of walking through cracks and tunnels. They tired of slow walking it. And then when a game comes out like Returnal, I don't want that. There's nothing like Returnal. And they be like, I don't want that. You know what I mean? Then when Sony makes another cinematic game, they're like, another cinematic game, and then they show a good cutscene. Oh my God, this game is Game of the Year. Like the things that people really are invested in as gamers is so ass backwards. A lot of the times it has nothing to do with gaming. I gotta give props to the Nintendo fans. As raggedy as that fucking console is, and as raggedy as those graphics are, and as simplistic as a lot of the mechanics are, at least they stuck to fucking gameplay only. You don't see Nintendo fans, unless they're deep Nintendo fans, right? Because they know about Zelda's story and how that shit's time travel and all that other good shit. But for the casual person that jumps in there and they just understand save the princess, save the world, they're going to just talk about gameplay and that's it. Even furthermore, you got the Souls people that would literally, most people talk about the gameplay, like 80%, 90% of the people, and you got the hardcore fans talking about what the implications of the story is. It really sprouted out when it came to Bloodborne and how deep that story is and how you can really enter and dig into that rabbit hole and call it a day. But the problem here is that people are so used to flashiness and cutscenes, and they want their games to look like movies so they can brag about it. And no one talks about Sony's gameplay. It's weird to me that no one's talking about Ragnarok's gameplay and how that took a hack and slash and made it into a game of its own. No one talks about Horizon and its shooter RPG elements, but they'll talk about Fallout more than fucking Horizon, which Horizon is by far better gameplay wise than in intricacies and balance than the Fallout game. But they'll talk about Fallout before they talked about like Horizon. Or our Ghost of Tsushima is a competent fucking melee game. And no one talks about that. They talk about one slash and some betrayal, and it looks pretty, and then they move on to the next. It's like they play the game with their brains off. And they may get a cutscene and take a picture of it, or that was crazy when such and such got their head cut off. That was crazy with that. I don't see nobody really talking about the gameplay. And then it's funny when that guy on Twitter displays the actual gameplay. I forgot what his name is. It's Shinobi or some shit. And they're like, "Oh wow, I was playing this game wrong the whole time." Yes, you were. You just skated through the fucking game so you could go to the closest cutscene and be entertained with that. It's like those memes do have a truth to it. It's like you basically when you play a Sony game, you turn it on, you grab your popcorn and start eating. Like it, hate it or love it.
You know, that's funny, and I understand that Horizon is one of your favorite games, but I wasn't surprised when neither Ragnarok and Horizon wasn't nominated for Game of the Year. Because you gotta understand, Elden Ring was mainly just gameplay. Mainly just gameplay. And it shook someone real bad to the point where how Ragnarok won nearly every single awards, but just Game of the Year. Because it was just mainly about the gameplay. And due to the fact that it was available elsewhere.
I mean,
so I give Elden Ring credit. You know what I'm saying? I give them credit. They put in so much effort to make that game.
Aesthetics and just gameplay. You know what I mean? That's what sold Elden Ring. That's what sold Elden Ring. You know, and that's what it was. That's all you needed. They didn't need to have crazy cutscenes where you could see the character swallow. You know? It's just weird to me that people can sit there and I don't know, it bothers me. It really does bother me. Even when it goes to the Last of Us, man. People don't even talk about a lot of the gameplay that was in The Last of Us Part 2. They're busy worried about Joel or social justice or lesbians or violence. They don't really talk about the fucking game. They don't. Even the hardcore fanboys. You know what I mean? This is what irritates me when I go on Twitter and you see the fucking fanboys fanning out about how Ellie should go together with fucking Abby. Like they make their own fan fiction. What the fuck does that have to do with the gameplay? She should ship Abby. They should put their differences aside and have a release. Like, what the fuck? Where's the gameplay?
Wait, say that last part again.
Abby and Ellie for The Last of Us Part 2. That's what I see on social media. They're busy creating fucking story narratives. And it's like they're so hell-bent on a fucking storyline instead of the gameplay. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's the wrong direction that Sony is going. They should not go in that direction. You should really focus on not just gameplay, but you should really there we go. You should really focus on gameplay instead of the story. My man Guap, what's going on? Yo, thanks for having a nigga back when a whole bunch of fucking Nintendo fanboys tried to decimate me and failed.
Hey, you know they come vicious, man. That shit is great. You can't have an opinion, man. Otherwise they'll shoot you. You heard them loud and clear. If you have an opinion, you know what I'm saying, you better get the wiki, bro. You can't critique Nintendo. You can't have an opinion. Are you crazy?
I was like, what the fuck?
I went to war with them bum ass niggas a year ago. They still fucking hurt, so they're looking for another victim. They think they got one over because I said the Switch's dog shit hardware wasn't worth $300 in 2022. It's definitely not worth $300 in 2023. Even if they have one of the best games to release this year, my critique is about the hardware, and the value itself was never about the actual software. And for me as a consumer who's in the market for a Switch, you're damn right I can talk about it. And any motherfucker that has a problem with it can choke on a dick. But what are y'all talking about here specifically?
So what I am talking about for this topic is I feel like Sony, and this is coming from a place of, of care. I do not like the cinematic route that Sony is taking. I don't mind great cinematic direction, great animations with the cinematics, characters where you could tell their eyes are watering or they're swallowing deeply because they're deeply concerned. I love all that shit. But what deeply concerns me as a fan of PlayStation is that PlayStation niggas typically don't really talk about gameplay. That bothers me. That's weirdo shit to me. You feel me? Like, I don't see people talk about the gameplay of like Ragnarok, even though it's extremely competent. They talk about like, oh, I play as Atreus, and they do like a cutscene, QTE, and that's it. But they don't, like how people talk about Elden Ring or the Souls games, and they talk about builds and meta. No one talks about that. It's like God of War is not an RPG. It's like it's something else. And I feel like because
that's like a narrative that goes around,
I don't
right?
know, but it's happening, and I see it. Look, all I want is that people on social media, including the PlayStation fans, need to recognize the intricacies of a Sony exclusive in terms of gameplay, because they act like they don't fucking see it. They act like the only thing Sony is good for is a fucking cutscene, and the second they get a game that doesn't have a cinematic narrative, they're ready to kick that bitch to the curb and keep it moving until they find something that looks like a fucking MCU universe movie. Go on, man. I'm curious to see what you have to say about this.
I want to hear his take. Well, I want to hear your take.
You're gonna eat it up.
I think it's more or less the circles you run in, right? I see tons of gameplay. We see YouTubers like Jay Barry and Persona. All they focus on is mostly gameplay. Obviously, every single Sony first-party game has intricate gameplay design centered at the core of what it's out to accomplish. I don't care if it's Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man, The Last of Us, God of War, Ragnarok. Every single one of those games has A1 gameplay, masterclass level control design, and perfect, near flawless performance, right? So I can't knock Sony itself for being good at everything, because that's what you're saying, right? You're saying you don't like the focus on the cinematic. I don't think they're focused specifically only on cinematic gameplay, because we see something like Demon Souls remake and Bloodborne, right? Two massive PlayStation exclusives. They don't have any cinematic angles whatsoever. You even mentioned Returnal. So we can't fault them for having a diverse library and a lineup that covers all the bases. And we also can't fault them for being the best at what it is they put their minds to, nor can we challenge them to stifle creative freedom. We can request and have these discussions, and I don't ever try to squash people or choke a nigga out or threaten to shoot them because they had a critique for a game. I'm gonna leave that to the Nintendos and the Xbox. But they're spending a lot of money on these games, so it's going to be par for the course for them to be the best in class visually, the best in class cinematic, because quite simply they're spending the money, right? They're putting the money where their mouth is. So in that regard, I definitely feel you as far as gamers are concerned. And obviously, a lot of Xbox want to be like, oh, they're just walking sims and all this dumb shit, right? Obviously, I don't give no credence to people that talk out their ass and walk on their hands. So I wouldn't spend my time being frustrated over that. But when every single, like Horizon Forbidden West, extremely cinematic, right? Has extremely long dialogue, trees with multiple choices and decisions, and intricately woven and crafted CGI, well, not even CGI, in-game cutscenes. But then also, I'm a person who has almost 200 hours in the game, and that's 99% gameplay. So yes, they're good at delivering cinematic experiences, but I can't fault them because at the end of the day, all the games in their first-party portfolio have stellar gameplay to back it up as well.
And that's what I was kind of saying earlier.
No, also, I get what you're saying, because what you said earlier, Hideous, is that you was like, yo, you took it as if I was saying remove them, and I'm like saying I get rid of them, and I'm not saying remove them at all. I'm just simply saying make less of it so people can like focus on the gameplay more than the cutscenes. You know what I'm saying? Sony offers so many options for all types of gamers to use, and none of it's respected in terms of the regular gaming community. You know what I'm saying? People will pick up an Assassin's Creed before they'll pick up a Horizon or Days Gone or Ghost of Tsushima, and it's disheartening. I personally want them to kind of slow down on the cutscenes in general, because like me playing God of War Ragnarok or the other God of War, I now gotta be slowed down by a long ass fucking cutscene. You know what I mean? I can't skip it, you know, because the game is so heavily narrative driven. I don't like that.
But I think think that's what they're currently working on right now, knowing to the fact that they acquire Blue Point Studio, and then earlier I just saw how they're working on a AAA that we don't even know what it is. So it's like I think they're trying to move to that direction where they want to start making games be more about the gameplay than just 90% cutscene and 30% gameplay.
I think they are.
Yeah, that's completely false, bro. There is not a single game in the PlayStation first party studio that is 90% cutscene or whatever you said. All of their games are 99% gameplay. I have 100 hours in God of War. There's probably 2 hours of cutscenes in the game. Like, I don't understand what y'all are like. Are y'all playing these games or skimming through them? Do you listen to music or just skim through it? Like, what game are you talking about? Which PlayStation game has more cutscenes than gameplay? Please tell me.
Ragnarok.
There's not a single one.
Well, hold on, wait.
Well, not necessarily 90, but
there's a hold on, wait.
Nigga, it's not even close to 10%.
Hold on. No, that's not true either.
All right, so let's hear it. Go up.
So like
somebody, I have 100 hours.
I know, but there's people. But
you're telling me 10 of those hours I was sitting there watching a cutscene. So that's not fucking true.
Just because you're yelling doesn't change the fact, man. There's people
the fact
clock,
is there's not 10 hours of cutscenes in God of War Ragnarok, bro. People already clocked the cutscenes time against the gameplay. They already done this. I'm not saying it's 90%, but it's a good chunk of it. It's not even 10 hours of cutscenes in the game, and I played 100 hours of gameplay.
All right, so if you take all the cutscenes out, then how? No, because if you're saying
I think it's about 3 hours.
All right, and if you're saying that you can't tell me that there's 100 hours of gameplay either.
Yes, I can. I played the game for 100 hours, and I still don't have.
You can play the game for 100 hours, and if they want you to grind, I mean that's padding. That's what that would be. But if you talk about playing, I never grinded it in God of War. Complete the mission. But did you finish the game?
Yes, I beat the game, and now I'm going back to fight.
So then that's the gameplay. So like, if you wanted to do the side missions and the missions themselves, of course, right?
Yeah, I complete the whole game.
If you wanted to do it, they clocked that around 30 hours.
Okay, and again, that's not 10% if there's only 3 hours of cutscenes, bro. I don't know if y'all understand.
My bad.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, even if it's hyperbolic, right? Because I don't feel like looking into it. To be honest with you, I'll pull it up and find out that there's some games that have a lot of fucking cutscenes versus the fucking game itself.
If you was talking about a Kojima game, I think that would be a more reasonable take. But he has never been first party. He's never been first party.
But But listen, I'm not trying to get into the semantics of like exact numbers. You throw out hyperbole.
So you don't want to use facts. So you don't want to use facts.
No, that's not as though. Hold on. I'm not trying to not use fact, right? I'm just trying to create a hyperbole to prove a point, or to give you more of an idea of what I'm talking about. All I'm saying is this: even if your numbers are right, which they're not confirmed, nor is mine. Why do people undermine Sony's gameplay and just worry about the cutscenes, fans and haters alike? What's the reasoning for that? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think it's just a fanboy tactic people use to undermine greatness, right? A lot of people that complain about those things haven't actually played the games. They probably watch the YouTubers say, oh man, this game's overly cinematic, when in reality, we can't name a single Sony first-party game that has more cutscenes than gameplay. We just can't.
All right,
Sackboy.
the fans,
Sackboy's a good example. Sackboy's a good example. It didn't have that much of cutscenes.
But the fans, right? The fans of PlayStation have this situation where they don't even talk about the gameplay of the games that they like. I'm not talking about you, Go Up. I'm not talking about you, Hideous. Some of the general consensus, because I have to be very specific and just talk about the regular people that you see online, man. I don't understand why people just relegate Sony's games into this weird ass, it's just cutscenes. Or they have some really good cutscenes. No one talk about gameplay, and it's weird to me.
Well, honestly, a lot of these motherfuckers are playing on easy mode just to beat the game, so they can make a video for their goddamn YouTube or try to blow up on social media. They're not really like, a lot of people aren't really gamers that study the intricacies of the gameplay itself. They just want to get to the end of the game and beat it so they can be a part of the discussion. But I think because Sony is evolving storytelling and gaming as we know it, right? They're arguably the only ones pushing storytelling forward within gaming, which is why we see things like The Last of Us becoming successful on television, because the storytelling was so fucking amazing. Something a company like Nintendo would never be able to do because they don't have any compelling narratives to the degree that's needed for a mature audience.
Okay, so now that we got that at least, right, on point. So that makes sense. There's a lot of casuals out there that want to be a part of the narrative, right? But I agree with Hideous. He says that Sony is moving more towards the gameplay department. Their games are more intricate. I definitely believe that. They started that shit back in 2018. No more Uncharted where you're just shooting in an arena and then you go to the next cutscene and then shoot in the arena and you go to the next cutscene and you're done. Most of these games have a lot of intricacies in them nowadays, and I'm starting to see the narratives. They're going to have to keep throwing shit at the wall until something sticks into these people's mind, that because they could play Resident Evil back to back 8, 10, 15 times, right? But when it comes to like The Last of Us, they can only play it once or twice, but yet the gameplay is more involved. It's weird to me. So I'm gonna start going to the speakers. So basically what I want to say for Energy Code and Television and Jerk and 2099, basically I feel like Sony should, just the industry should move away from cutscenes, right? And more to the gameplay, so people can start recognizing that Sony makes top tier games in terms of the gameplay field. People talk about Elden Ring and the Souls games all the time, and it's like, well, I mean, why don't you say that shit about Sony? Energy Code, go on, man.
One of the things that like really gets me, and I believe there's a false narrative that's in occurrence right now. If you take the games that people, cinematic narrative driven movie games, and they use that as a descriptor to denigrate the games and say there's not gameplay heavy mechanics, I would challenge any person to take any game and calculate all the time spent in narrative exposition and cutscenes. By narrative exposition, I mean actually stopping the flow of gameplay, and calculate the time of actual combat, exploration, and true gameplay. And they won't find a single game, not even Death Stranding. There's not one game where the gameplay does not dwarf the narrative in monumental proportions. So I think the whole foundation of this conversation is on the basis of a false narrative.
Well, if you're going to take it that way, let me just say this, right? I don't think it's off. I said cinematic gaming is killing gaming, or cinematics. It's killing gaming. Not to say that it's overwhelmingly too much. It's just to say that I feel like they need to put their gameplay front and center more so than their story.
So I would challenge you then to tell me one game where that falls under this narrative driven game where the gameplay doesn't dwarf those cinematic elements by an 80 to 20% ratio.
All right, so we're not talking about the numbers. We're talking about putting the story front and center over the gameplay. That's what we're talking about, because there seems to be, even with fans,
So can you just give me an example of a game?
I'm not. No, you're trying to steer it, and I'm not.
No, I'm asking you to give me an example of a game where you feel the narrative is front and center as opposed to the gameplay.
Uncharted.
You think Uncharted 4 falls under that category?
Yeah, and look, yep, that's what I feel that it does. And here's what you're going to do. Most likely, you're going to say that, well, I didn't feel that way, and then this is going to make this muddy. And all I'm saying is this: the only thing that I could say about this, right, is that why don't people give Sony its just desserts when it comes to accolades because of their gameplay? All people can think about when it comes to Sony is cutscenes and cinematics. That is already indicative of something's going on, and probably leaning to what I'm saying, that the stories are front and center more than the gameplay. So you cannot feel that way, but no one can seem to bring the gameplay side of Sony's games. No one cares about it.
I do think it's a perception thing, right? Honestly. And I think part of that skewed perception comes from the fact that they have hit a cinematic height that no one else is achieving before. But where you and I disagree, though, is I think that the gameplay is so complementary that I don't think it's not front and center. I just think the cinematics have hit heights that have yet to ever be seen in gaming, ever. And as a result of that, they are reducing Sony games to that often.
It's unfortunate because you got Horizon that has a really good gameplay, like a great gameplay even, but people just relegate it to graphics. And since it doesn't have its story front and center, they look at that game as like, I don't like it. Aloy's like, what the fuck does Aloy being boring has anything to do with the gameplay? I'm gonna let television talk. Television, you go ahead.
So yeah, I guess I'm gonna disagree. I guess with your point, or I guess I don't know, your overview. Okay, so you mentioned Horizon, right? Let's go back to Killzone, right? So Killzone had a cinematic approach, right? But Killzone's story was, at least
how much cutscenes is in GT7, Taylor?
Hold, I was gonna get to that. But let's look at Killzone, right? Like Killzone's game story was front and center, right? Even though it was very graphic intensive and very cinematic. It's basically like a World War II / Vietnam shooter in space. And they always go back to like the, how terrible just being at war is and the toll it takes you. I mean, the game's called fucking Killzone, right? You know what I mean? So then when you jump to Horizon, I don't like. I mean, I guess you're saying people are saying that like the story's not like prevalent, or they just don't like it.
They're saying that it's not prevalent. That's the thing, and I'm like,
Yeah, I don't see that. Now I've heard people say that about Last of Us. They're saying, which I think they're even more wrong in that case. That hey, it's just this movie or whatever. But I don't know, because now let me say this about Horizon's story. I feel like the whole story is front and center. Now, is the story amazing? No, I think the world is great and the world building's fantastic, and the overall sort of scenario they put you in is fantastic, I think. But the actual story, like what Aloy does, I don't think that is that compelling. So maybe that's why.
Did you play the first game?
Yes, it's one of my all-time favorite games. Yes.
All right, and you said it. Well, I mean, again, the game is a sci-fi game about the collapse of civilization, and they give you a context as to what happened.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think it's bad, but then like you could pick any game and say that, oh well, it's great. Like you look at The Last of Us, that's just about fungi and zombies, but that would be a horribly reductive comment.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like the world that they built for Horizon and how they got there, and the whole shit with all the fucking AIs and how they rebuilt the machines, all that shit, Ted Farrell, all that shit is amazing, right? I just feel like the story that they tell with Aloy is kind of mundane.
Can I ask a question? Because I think this conversation is confusing for me, and I don't know if it's confusing for anybody else. So if you could just humor me and help me out here. When you say that Sony's games don't put gameplay front and center and like story seems to be the thing, are you taking the position that this is a perception issue or that this is a true statement? I don't know your position, to be honest.
You talking to me, right?
Yes.
No, this is definitely perception based. I just like I
see, and that's why I approached this how I did. I said that I believe this is just a perception thing, but it's not factually actually true. So is your question then, how does Sony break away from this perception that they're just making movie games, but they're just as gameplay centric? Is that the question that's being posed?
Yes.
Okay, I was a little bit confused. I get where we're going now.
No, yeah, I'm not saying that it's that is what's going on. I'm literally saying like I don't understand how to fix it. You know what I'm saying? And like my whole thing is
But
like,
is it broken though?
I would say if the perception is what it is, then something needs to happen.
But the games sell between 8 million and
That's
40
not what
million.
that's not what Sony. It's never been a 40 million in one sitting. It's
Well,
never
no,
done that.
but I was referring to the Spider-Man sales. But even if you look at like
Even
Death
that
Stranding
one is
before the
even that
rollout,
one.
yeah, but I'm saying even if you look at Death Stranding before the rollout, 5 million. Even if you look at Horizon Forbidden West, it sold the same amount on the PlayStation, roughly at 8.43 million. So my question is, they seemed to be doing very well, which means people are in love with these games regardless of the perception. So is this even a negative perception that they need to, a problem that they need to solve? Because no other company outside of Nintendo is having the success with their first party titles like this. So is this perception even a negative one?
It could be. You know what I'm saying? Because again, a lot of people work on the gameplay for these games, right? And people just kind of skip over it. They put it on a regular mode, and they just hop and skip all over the whole thing, and that's not good either.
So how do you feel about Sony funding a game like Returnal, which most people who played Returnal couldn't tell you an ounce of what the story is about based on the method of delivery?
That's what I'm saying. Some people are going to dig into it. How would I feel about it? I feel like there's a balance that you need to strike. I feel like, I mean, I'm always going to be a person that advocates gameplay. That's always going to be a case. I will never say not. You can have no fucking story, you know what I mean? And I'll be okay with that. But since we are moving things into the mainstream, then you probably need to do a little bit more story-wise. You probably should do a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll
I'll
point to one more title. I don't believe it's not Sony first party, but I believe they were involved in funding it, and that would be Kena Bridge of Spirits. And I would say by no means was this is it super front and center with the story based on how that story is delivered. You maybe see a total of 4 or 5 cutscenes the length of the entire game, which are very, very brief. It's a very gameplay centric boss rush style game essentially.
Where is he still in here? I think he dropped out. He said what he said and bounced. 2099. What you guys say about this shit? Not bad. You were waiting the whole time, man. This shit got.
No, I'm over here playing Dead Island, bro. I'm chilling. But I don't think that it's a problem now, but I think that it can possibly become a problem. No, let's keep it real. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It will become a problem if it continues with certain things, because like me, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for nobody else. Me personally, Ragnarok, the reason why I'm probably never gonna play Ragnarok again is because it had too many forced segments where I'm not doing anything, but it's not exactly a cutscene. For me personally, I don't mind a bunch of cutscenes. Like a game can have 5 hours. Ragnarok only had 3 hours worth of cutscenes, and it's a 25-hour game. I'm fine with that. I just don't like when they interject, the walking segments, or I'm using Atreus riding a fucking animal for, 40 minutes just to progress the story, and I'm not really doing anything. I just don't like shit like that. I'd rather them give me more cutscenes than me walking around with Miles in a museum.
You ain't lying, 29. That scene was about the only real scene that was painful in Ragnarok.
Bro, that scene right there made me so upset.
Y'all didn't enjoy falling in love with Anger Boner?
Hey, listen.
No.
It was a visually stunning scene. The color palette was beautiful, but god damn did that scene run too long, man.
They knew it too. They said
was in La La Land for like 3 weeks.
That's they knew that shit with the cutscenes, bro. Other than that, I'm not tweaking out the cutscenes, but just like Miles, that's my favorite PlayStation game of all time. Obviously,
I thought Horizon had a better story than God of War Ragnarok, personally.
Yeah, I would go with that too. But like walking around a museum with Miles for 20 minutes just looking at artifacts to progress the story. Like, come the fuck on, dude. I'd rather them give me more cutscenes than to interject the cutscene shit into the gameplay, and that's my only problem with
it. And I think you summed that up perfectly, man. Like what you just said, you don't want to go that way. You know what I'm saying?
So y'all niggas don't want to play as Mary Jane?
Oh, that part was painful in Spider-Man 2018 too. God, you guys are giving me like PTSD
Uncultured
right now.
Swine, man. Uncultured swine.
Yo, I'm getting PTSD with these moments. Don't say anymore.
I was like, what the fuck is this?
Remember Final Fantasy VII Remake? How they kept slowing us down in every corridor to hear talk, and I'm like, let me fucking play.
Yeah, that shit's annoying too. You have to kind of walk and shit like that. I'm like, I mean, get it right. All right, I get it. Uncharted did a decent way of you can run through things, but ultimately, like I just want to play the game and explore and do what I need to do on my own pace and shit. And these games, because of their cinematic nature, they don't want you to do that. They don't want you to do that. And sometimes these developers are super pretentious. They're like, well, I understand it, but I felt like you need to be in the moment. You felt like I needed to be in the moment. You don't give a fuck. Like, I don't want to do that shit, period.
I will say this, though, right? Games like Returnal, games like all of From Software's library outside of Sekiro, the games like that are mostly very, very gameplay centric, and story seems to come secondary. It's hidden. The narrative exposition is fractured and dispersed. A lot of people tend to leave those games not knowing a damn thing about what those games are about and couldn't tell you. So I think the style plays a role in this, but also like what you want to do with your narrative. These games that you're describing, Last of Us, Uncharted, things like that, these are more like they're more guiding you through an experience as opposed to simply crafting your own experience as the games I just mentioned.
And I don't mind that, but you still need to operate within the medium that you are in, which is interactive. You know what I mean? Like, if you start taking that shit away, then now we got a fucking problem. That's my issue. I don't mind a lot of the shit. It's just that when you do it too much, it makes it hard for you to go back and play these games all over again because it's so long in the tooth. But like I said before, in nature, and you got to understand, we're the minority. We're gamers. We're fairly hardcore, right? But a lot of people are playing these games that are casual, and they kind of dictate the narrative. Honestly, if they say that they want cutscenes all the time, I'm sorry, not want cutscenes. If they see that the game is cutscene driven, obviously there's a problem. That's my whole thing. Something clearly is wrong if the perception is that that all you get from a Sony game is a fucking cutscene. So that's all I was saying.
I still have to push back on on it being a problem though. These Sony first party games are unmatched unless we're talking about Nintendo, and based on that level of success, it seems to be what people want.
I mean, do you want it?
I'm very happy with Sony's first party offering. Like,
why does this nigga Jerk Chicken got his hand up?
These games that you're I guess it's just a perception thing, because truly and honestly, I don't feel like it's a bad thing. But I will agree with something you did say. I do find myself highly less likely to replay those style of like cinematic narrative driven games. I don't often will replay them, while I would be more likely to boot up something like Hades or Dead Cells or Returnal and play them multiple times. So I do agree with that statement for sure.
Jerk Chicken, what you gotta say, man? My bad. I'm not looking at the phone.
Oh no, you're good. I just put it up there to remind myself. It's I hear what you're saying, and I agree with the cheat code. It's the way that's what people want. I feel like that's the majority of the sales for PlayStation games. The majority want that cinematic. Personally, what I want, I'm more into gameplay, because I played platinum games like Days Gone and Gravity Rush and all those things. So for me personally, gameplay above everything else. That's why I love Days Gone, for the gameplay. But what sells these Sony games, I believe, are the cinematics that people love, and that's pretty much it.
So before we move on to our second topic, right? I wanted to ask you guys. You guys could just jump in. No need to raise your hand. What do you think Sony could do to change the perception of just being a cinematic game and show their games to be like competent within the field that they are in?
I think there's two things they can do. One is marketing, right? A lot of these games tend to be very violent and gritty, especially games like Last of Us. So showcasing gameplay might be a little bit more challenging in like television ads and things like that. But I do think they can focus more on the marketing side of things to highlight that. But the secondary thing is not to replace what they're currently doing, but to invest in more first party and funding other properties, like continuing to do projects like Kena, partnering up with stuff like Stray, more projects like Returnal. I think diversifying the library is a solution, but not deviating from the runaway success that they're having and what people seem to be wanting. So I say add more games to the portfolio that fit that criteria and market them properly. Because even if you look at Returnal's marketing, it was very cinematic focused, right? You would think it was some narrative game, but it's very light on the narrative and almost entirely gameplay focused. But I wouldn't say the marketing was really reflective of that.
Okay.
I think if your perspective that Sony games are only cinematic, when they put out multiple games a year that can be played for hundreds of hours, they don't need to change. You do. That's just my opinion.
It's like, Guap, you feel like you dropped the mic just now, didn't you?
He felt that, yo. He felt he did something.
I did like my joint, but I didn't drop any more.
I'm not gonna lie, that little combination of words into that sentence did sound kind of slick.
He tried it though. No, I don't like. I'm cool with the cinematics, to be honest with you. Other than the fact that do not stop me or force me to be in an area. Do not do that.
You don't want to take Angerboda on a long ass date now.
It's not even about her. It's just period. I mean, I know you're joking, but like, don't make me stop when I'm on a roll. You know what I mean? Like, allow me to break free from that shit. I didn't like it with PS1. I don't like it. I didn't like it with PS2, 3, or 4, or 5. Stop doing that.
Ironically, my biggest critique of Horizon Forbidden West is I don't like where you be at the base and you go through these talk trees with the individual characters to move their stories along. I thought that could have been handled more elegantly. So in a roundabout way, I kind of agree with you. That should have been more of a, like, you know how Aloy and Katala went on that mission? The dialogue should be handled dynamically while you're playing the game if you're going to have these long exposition dumps. I need that to change or quote unquote evolve. That was my biggest critique for Horizon Forbidden West. Absolutely loved the game. Was my game of the year for 2022. But yeah, I wanted to see that evolve, right? Because that's basically a trope from other Western RPGs like Mass Effect and Skyrim. What's the one on Knights of the Old Republic? Even though Horizon has less choice in its design than those games do, it's still that archaic, old school design. Oh, I'm gonna stand here and talk to this person like a fucking wooden board. No, they should come out and do a mission with me. And while we're going through the mission, they're just talking about the world, themselves, their perspective, how they came up. Like, you actually get to know them because you do a lot of fucking walking in the game, right? Like, or riding on horseback or flying on a pterodactyl.
And then they should stop you. Like, if they ask you a question, then you can have yes or no or answer this the way or that way while you're on the field. I do think they need to do two things.
I would pause the dialogue if we get into a combat encounter. You know what I mean? And I think God of War does that, right? When you get in the boat and he'll be telling a story, then you pull up on something and he'll be like, all right, we'll talk about that later, which is ironic. So in their first party portfolio, they actually have shown a way to actually do exactly what I'm saying. It just needs to be applied across the board, in my opinion.
All right. And I think that they need to learn from each other. I get that they operate like a different studio, whatever the case is. I get that. My whole thing is they need to short, like, instead of you just branching off, like having branches, you really should just have, do you want to know more or not? And just have, you know what I mean? And just dump you with all this shit and then let the cutscene play. Do not break it in little chunks and pieces. Don't do that. Because it's going to feel overwhelming.
So you want to watch a 90-minute movie in between gameplay chunks?
Might as well, because, like, I mean, people, they think it's...
Motherfuckers killed Metal Gear Solid for that, though.
Well, but look at how much that sold. You know? But, you know, I will say this, right? So I will say consolidate your shit. And then any other things, have it on the field. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a decent consensus. Like, you good with that. Because the dialogue is definitely, the dialogue needed some work for sure. You know what I mean? And they need to be more, like, you know, emotive. It was like they were reading off of a script. It didn't feel, you know, because like they're moving and they don't look like, you know what I mean, like a mannequin. You know, they're itching their nose and they're pacing the floors, but like it still was the same thing. You're locked into this conversation, and that felt like ass, in my opinion, right? So that's how I would handle it. So what about let me see here, my bad. 2099, what you got to say about like what do you think they can do to change the perception of people claiming that it's just cinematic? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, because they obviously have gameplay. That's obvious. The gameplay is there, but for some reason people perceive it as just a storyline thing. And I think that part of what Inner Chico was saying is real. I think it really has a lot to do with, you know, it's so high and, you know, on a mark that people just perceive it that way. But yeah, go
on. To me, I think that the criticism has always been that they're walking simulators, which is stupid. But I think if they want to change that, much like I said before, stop turning the game into a walking simulator at certain points to pad the exposition and take away player agency. I think that's pretty much the only thing you could do, because they're going to continue to have the big cutscenes. They're going to continue to, you know, have that AAA box office feel, you know, on the games, and that's fine. But I think that people only have a problem with it and they start criticizing the game once you take away the player agency, which a lot of Sony games do. None of them are really as bad as Uncharted 4 was, because that game was 20% of cutscenes. It was 3 hours of cutscenes, and the campaign was only 15 hours. So since then, they haven't been too bad on it. But again, just stop taking away the player agency with those forced ass Mary Jane and the Boda stuff. Just stop with the forced walking segments, and either give us something else to do or add actual more cutscenes to the game like you want to do.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to move quickly on to our second topic, but I need to kind of ease everybody into it. I want to ask you this, Guap. Is there something in particular that you're completely irrational on? Any topic at all? Like a topic that you know is faulty, but you don't care because you're just irrationally... Something like horoscopes, I'll put it that way. Is there something like that you kind of believe in, and you know that it doesn't really make sense, but you say fuck it?
Religion, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, I don't understand. Could you explain?
Well, what you just you asked me if there's a topic that you totally have an antithetical opinion on that you just don't touch, and I replied with religion.
I mean, like something that you're pro with, like you're cool with, you know, it doesn't make any sense, but you're still cool with.
So you're saying, do I have any implicit biases that I'm willing to admit to? I don't, off the top of my head, that's not an observation I could make myself. Someone else would have to make me aware of that. I can be pretty fucking tone deaf and not read the room, but it is what it is, just who I am. So I think that would be an observation someone else could make. I couldn't give you an honest answer. If I have a bias, I try to recuse myself and comment from a neutral perspective. I would say at all times, unless it's in a joking manner.
All right. What about you, Jerk? Is there something that you just really just irrationally positive on?
That's what. Can you restate that? Say irrationally positive.
So you know what?
Oh, the dialogue is spoken. I just changed the dialogue.
Well, somebody has an echo like a motherfucker.
So yeah, the dialogue in for spoken. I'm dying on that. The shit's lit.
Because here's what I want to talk about, right? And maybe I just need to, I need to preface the conversation a little better. I've been thinking about this, in the world of everyone actually being so opinionated, you know what I mean? So strong with their opinions. If everything is for naught, then why care? Why care about an opinion at all? You know that eventually you will expire, and that's the end of it. Your opinions won't even matter. So why do people care? And leaning further into it, right? This is not gaming related, by the way, so just be aware of that. My thing is this, like, I have this irrational fear of not existing. Do any of you share that same irrational fear of not existing anymore? And could you articulate it? Why are you afraid?
I think we all fear death, right? That's what you're describing. That's the only equivalent that we can relate to. So life itself is everything. So within that context, it's fair to fear nothing because nothing is the eventuality of everything, right? If you get a bunch of box of chocolates and you got every flavor, one of them is going to be the end. And for us, the box of chocolate is life. And that one flavor we try to avoid every single day we go into that box of chocolates is death itself. We know one day it's going to be in that motherfucker and we're going to eat it, but it's like you're playing Russian roulette. And it's fair to have that fear because that's part of what inspires life itself, right?
So going back to Jerk Trick Chicken, so now that you have some context, what do you have to say about that?
I think you lost him.
He may have an issue. What about you, 2099?
You talking about the fear of no longer existing?
Yes.
Me, I don't necessarily have a fear of no longer existing. I have a fear of no longer existing too soon because I just want to be here for my kids. So, other than that, no, I don't really fear it. I know a lot of people do fear it. Basically, it really depends on where you're from. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, so I didn't, been through a lot of stuff. So, me, death was just another day. Just another day. You feel me? Basically, where I'm from, but yeah, just not being here for long enough to, see my children thrive and just be better than me and achieve things in my life that, I wish I achieved up to this point. But do I have a fear of it? No, not really.
Oh dear, my bad. I was muted. My bad. Go on, speak white chocolate. Go on.
Yeah, I just came up to basically ask by like non-existence, do you mean like as in you never existed, or like you're gonna die kind of thing?
Death.
Death, right? Well, to put it simply, I'm gonna quote a children's book, essentially. To the well-organized mind, death is but the next big adventure.
I mean, an adventure that you can't experience though.
But how do you know you can't experience it? Have you died before?
Well, you told that to the room. Most of the people in this room seem to think that there is no afterlife or anything afterwards. It's just the circle of life. That's it.
But then you can't fully, truly answer that question until you've died. So it's one of them grey area questions where there's no true definitive answer for it.
I concur. But let me ask Wap, though, with that statement, what do you say about that statement?
I mean, as someone who's lived, there's curiosity in death itself, right? Because that fear that you're talking about is kind of the fuel to your fire that compels you to live a fuller life, because you want to have aspirations that you see to fruition. And that fear is the inevitability that one day you may have aspirations you don't see come to an end because you weren't efficient enough in spending your time, since you knew from day one you had a set amount of time that was limited. So for me, that's what I believe death should be used as, since it is an inevitability to us all. Just use it as an inspiration to live your life to the fullest. That's really what it's there for, because we do know there's an expiration date. Ironically, Drake, the rapper, said, "Everybody dies, but not everybody lives." And that shit was, I don't even fuck with Drake. And that shit was like, wow, that's a really poignant statement for him to make. So in that regard, I just say use it as fuel to your fire, man, because it's an eventuality that you will go, but what are you going to do while you're here?
So Guap, what would you do if there was some sort of continuation after death? How would you feel about life if you knew that there was some sort of something beyond it?
I feel like honoring death is living. You can't, the time you spend, the time you have, you can't taint it with what isn't confirmed, because you don't have enough time as it is.
But let's
right?
say
You don't have enough time in this life, so you can't try to live two lives where you're living for this life, but you're also living for what happens after. I mean, we all were babies before, so we were new to this. And so my challenge in death is to just be a child again and to learn and to adapt to that situation. But I can't let that hinder my movements here in this reality, because this reality is already confirmed.
So, but you didn't answer my question. What if you knew? What if you knew that that was a thing? Like there was an afterlife. What if you knew that there was? Like, how would that impact?
So if it was confirmed, then you would move differently. You would move according to those rules. But as it stands now, there is no confirmation.
But how would you?
So
move? How would you move if you don't know the nature of it, but know that the continuation of consciousness is a thing? How would you move in that case?
I would stick stricter to the rules that maximize my reality in that instance. So for an example, if I knew that what the fucking Bible said was true, and in order to live the best version of this afterlife, I have to follow those rules. Obviously, I would follow those rules. But the thing about religion for me is I take it from a philosophical standpoint. You know what I'm saying? You can hone and be a better version of yourself. As other people have lived life previously, obviously they have wisdom and knowledge. So for me, that's what I look to religion to. Not as a tool to control people, which I believe is what it has been used throughout the history of mankind, and not to the greatest benefit of mankind. So that's why I seek alternatives, and the alternatives that I've discovered just empower me to live and be more of myself in this reality. Because at the end of the day, that's all we can do, in my opinion, of course.
I want to say this since there's the speakers that here, and I'm going to be very candid with everybody. It's going to sound like I'm probably schizophrenic or crazy or whatever, right? But fuck it. I mean, it doesn't matter ultimately, right? Whoever wants to fuck with me can fuck with me. I've always had this feeling that there is something more to this place. I just cannot settle with here. I won't allow myself to settle for what is here. I believe in purpose. I believe in things having a reason for existing, and I just can't sit and just say that, well, since there's no proof, there's nothing. You can't say it. You can't say it is. I'm just not content with just saying that this is it. I cannot be content. I feel, right?
I would contend that you're not looking close enough at what you actually have, right? They tell us you don't know what you have till it's gone. In life itself, there is an abundance of things here, more so than we even know. We think we know, but the more closer we look, the more things we can not only learn about ourselves, but the reality and the variables that play around us. So it's not disrespectful to say life itself is enough. In fact, if there is a creator, I think it's the highest respect to them to live your life to the fullest because it's the greatest gift you've ever received. And it's kind of disrespectful and not appreciative of enough to say this isn't enough. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I understand what you're saying, but if this creator, right, is running some sort of simulation, multiple simulations, so just life can evolve in that particular way, then everything is going according to plan. I'm not trying to disrespect people that are trying to live life to their fullest, and it doesn't mean that you can't live life to your fullest and then still explore other avenues simultaneously. I made the trip to move to Florida, right, from up north. I did this for a specific reason. My hating ass family was like, "Are you sure?" Because they didn't want me to leave because I am a liaison to the drama that's in the family and my family. I'm neutral in my family, so people want me to bridge the gap because there's so much animosity between everyone else. And me removing myself to the South, now there's no bridge anymore. Now there's nothing. So now they got to contend with their own problems. So they tried to get me to stay up there as long as possible. And I told them, no, I am moving. But my sister did bring something up, and it did make me think. She told me, are you moving down there because you are running away from your problems, or you're moving down there because you really want to be there? And even though she thought that was a deterrent, it did allow me to have a self-reflection as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I come to the conclusion that I should not have an expectation of people when I go down there. I should worry about the absolutes. The absolutes being the weather and the beaches. That's all I care about. That's it. And I'm okay with that. And I actually hammered home my reasoning for being down here. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to a beach around 40 minutes. Wasn't planning on swimming. I just watched the sunrise. And all the sherbet-like clouds exploded in the air. All sorts of crazy fucking colors. Something so surreal in our backyard. People don't really pay attention to it. So I do actually appreciate life and my existence as it stands. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't pursue knowledge and whatever is beyond, if there is a beyond. I'm not shitting on anybody that is content for what they are shackled to here, but I'm just telling you where I'm at. I want to get out of this existence, but not by death. I want to break free from this shit. Everything feels so fucking artificial. I don't know how to articulate that. I feel like I'm in a weird ass fucking Groundhog Day loop. You wake up at a certain specific time. You take your shower at a specific certain time. You sit in your fucking work chair at a specific time. The same fucking clients you speak to, they sound the same way over and over again. And then you clock out, you have your friends, and they talk about the same shit every day of the week. I just can't accept that every day. There has to be something better than this. And I won't rest until I die searching for this. That's all I'm saying. That's how I feel. I know that sounds crazy. It sounds nuts to say that to a degree. It's like, damn, like.
Well, it's a.
I mean, I wouldn't say it sounds.
It's an existential crisis where we all have that, right?
Hold on, y'all talking together.
We're like rats running the race. We all have this existential crisis, that stuck feeling. I would challenge you to challenge yourself from within, right? If you feel like you're in a rut, or you've shown the ambition and the willingness to flip your life upside down, keep doing that. Keep having that ambition. Keep fulfilling that. Keep running, right? Keep going to where it is that you feel like you need to go. Don't allow people's expectations to shackle you in. And I mean, that goes for this life, and if there is an afterlife.
Who was talking earlier? Somebody was saying something, but I couldn't hear him.
I mean, I was just going to say, with the way that you described it, then it sounds more like there's an underhanded unsatisfaction in your life rather than, you just fed up with it. So all I could suggest for that one is change your routine.
I have. That's
just
one
slight change.
It's one of the reasons why I did what I did, which is no one's in my family. It sounds small, but nobody in our family did something drastic like what I've done. Everyone was so comfortable, and everybody I know is very comfortable in their life and same job, and they don't really want to move forward. You know what I mean? They are shackled to their games. They'll sit there and play the same game over and over again, and that's it, and that's all they live for, and they don't want to do anything else. They don't want to break the routine, and if you try to break them out of their routine to do something else, I ain't talking about anything. I've been like this, Guap, for a very long time. I've been like this in my early 20s, and every time I would find a new experience, it would get old fast. You know what I mean? Even when I traveled, it would get old fast. I'm like, all right, so I've been here. There's only 7 fucking continents. There's not that many places to fucking go. And people usually have an archetype. There's a certain like number of archetypes that a human could house. And it's like, damn, I feel like I'm running into NPCs almost. And not because of lack of knowledge. It's just like you get certain type of groups of people and they act the same way and they don't try to break free from it. They're like they're as like NPCs. Honestly, that's what it feels like. And it's not because of an age thing, because I actually feel more content now than I did when I was younger. I really thought I could break out of the Matrix. I thought I was in some sort of simulation when I was younger. Like I was like, this shit, things look weird coincidences. I'm out of here. Now it's more along the lines of there's got to be more to life in general than just doing this same shit. It's not. I appreciate the job. I could change jobs. I had a lot of different jobs. They all feel the same over time, and it's quick that it starts feeling that way. And
so then maybe it's not the job that's the problem. Maybe it's the profession.
No, I had different professions. White collar, white collar, and blue collar alike. It's just they get old.
Maybe it's just you haven't found the right profession yet.
I mean, possibly. I mean, that could be.
I've got an uncle. He's sorry. He worked as a garbage man or a rubbish man for about 30 years, and he decided that he'd had enough of it. He retrained, and now he's an engineer in one of the biggest tech companies in the UK that work in renewable energy. So, and he did that when he was 50. So people find, what is right for them at any time. So it might just be the fact that you've not found that right thing in your life yet that makes you feel like, yeah, this is me. Like me in my life, the only reason I'm so content in my life is because my feelings and my dreams and what I want from life are now on the back foot, because my life is no longer my life because I've got 3 kids. So my life is their life. And I'm very, very, very content with that. You know, so it's all a matter of perspective.
So let me say this then. Let me just put things in perspective and we can close out. I know like this topic in terms of the gaming community is a topic that it's hard to have and it's hard to capture attention. I will say this, right? And anybody that knows about hold these spaces that I'll talk about some non-gaming topics. So to get to it, it's not that I don't like where I'm at right now. I could be a millionaire and not ever have to work again, and I'll still feel this way. I want to make it clear that I feel like my mind could do more than what this universe allows me to, this existence allows me to do. I feel like just the very fact that I'm here is limiting whatever you want to call it, a soul or whatever the case is. I feel like I could do more. I want to get out of this existence so bad, it's not even funny. And I know that sounds really out there, but I do feel like something is beyond here and I'm trapped in this fucking state of mind. I want to get out. I do. And I know that sounds wild and I don't care what it sounds like. And that's cool. I'm totally like, I can function in society regularly. I understand people for the moment, I articulate my points and people understand my points. But I just feel like this is such a limiting existence to the point where are you sitting here and just to know that you get old and die, and that's the end of it. You know, when I was younger,
if you want to broaden your horizons and stuff like that, like within the mind, the only thing I could suggest is shrooms. Have yourself a good old pot of shroom.
Wait, who's saying that? Is that Guap? Is that Guap? Who's saying that?
No, it's white chocolate, mate. C-bomb.
Okay. Why do you sound different? The fuck?
I sound different?
You look like you lost your accent for a second. You start. I didn't hear a UK accent at all at first.
Oh well, but yeah, get yourself on that shroom team, mate. You know,
and then I'll never return. And then I'll never return back to this existence. I'm so afraid of trying something wild. I'm like, I'm already on a fucking hinge. I may take something. I smoke weed. I won't, but a group of people. This is a little, and people probably already heard the story. I went to an exhibition beach with a group of people, and we thought it was a cool idea to smoke weed and be one with nature. That was the worst fucking mistake I've ever done because I don't know what the fuck. Fentanyl, I don't know what the fuck was in this bitch. All I know is that I took 4 fucking puffs and I was fucked up for 17 hours. Whatever the fuck it was, I was hanging on to existence as best as I could because it felt like if I just relaxed for a little bit, I would die. That's what it felt like. I felt like I wouldn't hang on to my corporeal existence and I would just leave and die. That's what it felt like.
That sounds to me like you should have taken that one extra drag, mate, to just get you there.
I was like, what the fuck? It was so fucking wild. Nigga was on the beach, ass up, and afraid, naked and afraid. That's what that shit was. I didn't know where the fuck I was forgetting shit. I didn't have a memory span for more than 8 seconds. People were looking at me, what the fuck is this problem? I got sunburnt and I'm black as shit. I just stayed in one fucking spot. I felt like I was swirling. This shit was fucked up. I don't know if I want to take no damn shrooms because I don't know what the fuck I was smoking. They claimed it was weed. That's what they claimed. They added a little case. They put it in the refrigerator and it was cold. They took that shit out there and said it would have kept the THC or whatever the fuck it is that's weed. It keeps it from evaporating or drying the fuck out, so it's going to be extra potent. I thought that shit was just going to give me a little bit of dizzy. And it turns out that I was like, bro, I looked at my phone and I understood what a phone was supposed to do. I just didn't know how to use it. I wanted to call 911 so bad and be like, help, help, I'm fucking dying. And I couldn't call nobody. I just looked at that fucking phone.
Damn, they gave you that butt naked, bro.
Bro, I don't know what the fuck that shit was. I was like, what
That's that wet. They had it in the freezer. That's that wet. You know what I mean? You take off all your clothes.
No, we were on
that. Butt naked, man.
That's
what happened. Smokey in the chicken coop.
Favor, though, man. When
in Friday, that's why I had Smokey in the chicken coop in Friday. You smoking on goddamn that training day.
No,
when you do find out what it was, please let me know.
I know. I don't. There's the person that was distributing that shit. Fuck that bitch. He looked at me like a fucking spirit fox. I was butt naked, and he was like, "Josh, listen to me, Josh." And he was echoing, and he looked like he was in a tunnel. He was like, "Rub your hands and legs. It'll give you a sense of position." That's what he told me. So I'm sitting there. I said, "That don't sound right." And he was like, "Just listen to me." So I start rubbing my thighs and shit in my arms, and all of a sudden I start calming down. And I was like, "Yo, I feel like I'm at the blackout." He was like, "It's the normal process." I said, "How you turn this shit off? How you turn it off?" He would say, "Yo, only you can find the key. Only you can turn it off." I said, "Stop talking mystical. How you turn this shit off?" That's what bro, I was like, I didn't even know how to fucking articulate it. That's all I remember is asking him how you turn this shit off. That's all I remember. And he told me, he was like, "You hold the key of control."
Some Jedi shit.
I got up wiggling and shit. Fuck it, I was like, let me put on my fucking trunks. And I start wiggling. And I walked all the way to the fucking bathroom. And I couldn't recognize myself. It was some nigga looking at me. And it was me, but I didn't know who it was. I couldn't recognize myself. I said, "What the fuck? Who looking at me?" I turned around, and really the reason why I couldn't tell what it was is I was sunburnt. I got dark as shit, and I looked at the mirror. I was like, "What the fuck is that nigga looking at me?" Nigga, it was you. So it was you looking at yourself. I tried. Look, huh?
I was just going to say, if that's what weed does to you, maybe don't go for the shrooms. Maybe go for a bit of salvia or something. Bit less potent.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
No, I'm telling you smoke wet, bro. You got wet.
Well,
smoking them dipsticks.
All I know is that I fought that shit. I fought it. I beat the shit out of that shit. But the funny thing is, yo, Guap, he was smoking this shit too. And they were smoking that shit. And it wasn't affecting them like that. And I asked him a question. I said, "Hey, let me ask you a question." I said, "Why do you smoke weed?" He was like, just a lot of things in life, man. You just gotta fight. I said, "What the fuck are you trying to fight? Why do you need it that strong? What are you beating demons? Like, what the fuck is going on with you?" Like the shit was so strong. I don't know what it was. I know I have fresh lungs and I don't smoke weed. I don't smoke anything. I don't really drink either. I keep a clear mind and I know I'll be off the hinge anyway. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if I want to do all that. But that's my experience of trying to do some shit. And maybe one of these days, if I could trust the motherfucker to do it, I'll take some shrooms and enlighten myself. And I'll let y'all niggas know. I would digitize myself in the Twitter space while you and Tehran and be making y'all spaces. And I'm just going to manifest in the fucking digital world and be like, "I found my way out, niggas. I'm out of here." And I'm just going to dissolve into digital space. And y'all never see me again. Maybe one of these days that shit will happen. But I don't know. I've always had this feeling when I was younger. I was like, man, I feel like it was like that one scene in The Matrix. And maybe that shit just resonated with me. You know what I mean? I was just, when Smith grabbed Morpheus by the face and he was like, "I want to get free. And in this mind is the key. Give me the fucking code so I get the fuck out of here." And that's how I feel like. Go back to see the first Matrix when Agent Smith was squeezing that nigga's face. That's the shit that I want. I want to get out. I feel like this shit is a gate or a fence or some shit. I want to get out of this bitch. And maybe that's crazy, and that's cool. I'm okay with hearing that shit. All I know is that my crazy ass is best in class in my fucking job. That's why I was going on vacations every fucking month until my shit ran out, because I'm good at what I do. apparently I ain't that damn crazy because people can relate to me typically. So I just feel like there's a way to get out this bitch, this existence, and find a higher fucking plane somewhere. And of course, I'm Christian as well, so like I'm religious. So I'm desperately hoping that there is a fucking way out of this bitch. Anyway, maybe it's the Christian background in me, just trying to wiggle my way out of this bitch. That's how I feel. But you know, I'm not mad at anybody that say that you know you need to live life to its fullest. But I'll say this to you, Guap. I don't know how living life to your fullest is joining the space and staying with me for a fucking hour. I would have been doing something the fuck else. But I appreciate you being there. You know, I appreciate all of you guys being there. I really appreciate that shit.
Oh, I appreciate the convo. I'm over here playing Forspoken, eating fried chicken. You know, it's a lovely Saturday evening.
Trifling.
Hope everybody's having a great night.
Trifling. Fried chicken. Terrible.
Yes, sir. Hell yeah.
No, that's okay. That's okay though.
That's the highlight of my Saturday night.
No, tomorrow, you know, I diet though. I diet like a white woman. You know what I mean? I'd be like, oh
yeah, I mostly eat salads. I'm boring as fuck. Too.
I mostly eat salad and hummus or some shit. No, I don't. But I do keep watch of how much I eat, and that's why I don't really gain weight. I have 2 cheat days, and when I do the 2 cheat days, I cut the fuck up like all the way. Like I am all the way like going when it comes to fucking. I.e., right? Tomorrow is my cheat day, so I'll be going to KFC and tapping into my ancestry by getting a bucket of chicken and some watermelon. But
I had the motherfucking KFC nuggets today, gang. Them bitches was slapping. I ain't even gonna lie. I ain't gonna hold you, cuz.
Bro, them 11 herbs. Look, that's how I'm gonna speak like my grandma, right? She don't say 11. She say them 11 herbs and spices. Them shits be fucking hitting. Whatever the fuck they be putting in that shit, I want it. And that's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. I am known to have an insatiable sweet tooth. I can eat 12 donuts in one sitting and not be fucking phased. Because the rest of the...
So can I, but when I go to the toilet afterwards, it's a different story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get the itis for a little bit, though. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'll slow down. I'll pass out for a little bit. But I don't cheat on the 5 other days. So that's what really helps me. Like my caloric intake is dumb low on those days. Like I'm doing like 1,400 calories, particularly for 5 days a week. And then I'm like 3,000 calories on my cheat days or more sometimes. And I'm not doing it purposefully. It's just like you starve yourself for that fucking long. Your cheat days could be nasty as shit, ill as shit, yo. You eat whatever the fuck you want to eat. But just discipline. It's really mostly discipline. You can't just do whatever you want when you are kind of like bodybuilding and things like that. You gotta really have a lot of discipline. And it's discipline of the mind too. When you have all your friends wanting to go to fucking Chipotle and all these other crazy places, you the only one that don't want to eat and you have to stick to your fasted schedule.
That's exactly why I did powerlifting and not bodybuilding, because I love burgers too much.
But it's good for the mind to control yourself in general, to control yourself from being weak to a lot of other things beyond food. You know what I'm saying? If I didn't control,
it's also good with the opposite of that. It's also good for the mind to just let loose and go crazy every now and then.
I do. That's why I have them cheat days. And for anything extra,
3,000 calories isn't a cheat day.
What, 3,000? Yeah, man, I don't weigh that much though. I ain't that tall.
Yeah, 3,000 calories to me though, man. That's not a cheat day. That not in my eyes, anyways.
What do you call a cheat day?
Well, when I was training and I was doing powerlifting, my main days I was eating 4,000 calories a day. My cheat days I was anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 calories.
Oh damn. Well, I mean, you're a power lifter, you know what I mean? I'm not CrossFit, but I'm like, I'm like this step above CrossFit and shit like that. So there's that. I mean, like I said before, there's some things that I am like, like in any RPG, I am super fucking weak to, and just strengthening my, my diet, because food is very addicting, especially the type of food that I eat. Anything with sugar, I am fucking eating like the fucking Tasmanian devil. I will eat it doesn't matter what it is. That shit have glucose in that shit. I'm eating the fuck out of it. That's just what it is. But like, I have my weaknesses, man, and if I can control that, I can control a lot of other things, because I will be running amok. There's some things that I am weak to beyond food that needs to be checked severely. I won't even get into that. Maybe not yet. But but I'm fucking insane when it comes to shit. I'm like, nah, I probably should chill. Either way,
everyone's entitled to the vices, man.
Occasionally, you still gotta like watch out. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys like joining in. I'm probably gonna get some Gran Turismo in, actually. I've been practicing on that too, and it's funny, the story from me getting into Gran Turismo is really just like, I had a big problem with I had it like I was in a head-on collision, and I know it sounds stupid, but like, I just need to understand positioning and shit like that. I just feel like I just have no control over the car anymore. Like, I lost faith in my skills in driving after that head-on collision. And so, like, I'll play that game in general just to kind of get a cheat of understanding, just kind of the fundamentals of driving. But I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna play some Horizon, because I'm working on the build, a crit build. Shut up. You said that shit to me in Discord. You was like, yo, they got that thing. I was like, bro, I was on it. Wait. Celicia, you actually had that situation where you took that fucking... She took them edibles and was going. I know. I said, never again, man. You definitely won't be naked and afraid taking some fucking edibles or some fucking hard ass weed, yo. I don't know what the fuck they put in that bitch. Anyway, you guys take care. I appreciate it.